Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hi, David, and welcome to our listeners around the world. This is the Feeling Good podcast, episode 392. And today we have a very special guest joining us, Jill Levitt. Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hi. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, David.
We haven't seen you for a while on the podcast, so we're really happy that you're here.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Well, you were telling us before we started recording that you've seen an interesting trend in your practice, and we were wondering if you could just tell us what that is.
Sure. Well, yes, I reached out to you guys, David and Rhonda, because I just thought it was interesting that in the same week in my practice, I saw two women, both of whom were empty nesters and had kind of similar types of concerns, but about the complete opposite scenario. And I just thought it was so interesting. And so I wanted to share it with you. And it kind of just also goes to show that we can beat ourselves up about just about anything, that self-criticism has no limits. Because one woman that I was working with, they were both, around their 60s and late 50s, early 60s. And one of the women was a recently retired, very, very high level executive who has, two boys who are out of the house at this point. And she had this very successful career and pretty recently retired. And she's actually, generally speaking, very happy in her life. But she was sharing with me that she had been really down on herself lately, telling herself that because she worked so much and so hard and focused so much on her career, that she was feeling really guilty, kind of ashamed, and telling herself that I didn't do enough for my boys and I should have worked less and spent more time with them. And I was selfish because I really loved work and I got so much out of it. I should have, put my boys first and put my family first, and telling herself it's selfish to do something you enjoy when other people need you. And ultimately saying, I'm a terrible mother, which was pretty shocking to me because she was simultaneously sharing with me these pretty beautiful relationships that she has with her adult sons and some great stuff she was doing. And I think, part of it was that she was appreciating them so much now and then thinking, man, I should have spent more time with them when they were younger. But instead of just noticing that, she turned that into just like very cruel kind of self-criticism. And so I experienced that in one session. And then later in the week, I had, in many ways a similar, but the exact opposite side of the coin scenario, which was that I was sitting in session with a woman kind of similar age who also is an empty nester now and has, 4 adult kids and all of them having, launched. And she was reflecting on figuring out this next chapter of her life and what does she want to do with her time now that she has a lot of time on her hands. And she was telling herself, I should have had a career. I did nothing with my life. And look at these friends of mine and people that I run into in my community who are super successful and they've done some amazing things with their lives. And I'm a smart woman. I should have done more. And I'm inferior compared to other women who've really contributed to society in some way. And all of this, despite the fact that, she has these kids, some of whom had some difficult challenges, health challenges, mental health challenges, and really did an incredible job, right, of focusing her energy on solving a lot of problems in the family and chose not to work for very good reason. And I just thought it was really interesting that both of them, it's like I wanted to tell each of them about the other. I almost wish I could have done a session where they could have, told each other that they were okay. And then I'll also share, this is probably why I thought it was so fascinating, because here I am, and I have two boys. My older son just started college. My younger son is a sophomore in high school, and I'm going, oh, in 2 years, I'm going to be an empty nester, and how am I going to be thinking about this? And I want to make sure I have my head on straight about all of it too. So I just thought it was an interesting topic to share with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. I've had a couple of those too in my life, and the earliest one was back, although I don't have a clear memory of it, in medical school when I was working in the medical clinic, and most of the patients that came in there at Stanford were the thick chart patients who didn't have any medical disorder, and they had an emotional problem that they weren't attending to, and kind of converting it into chest pain or dizziness or, headaches or back pain or whatever it happened to be. And I remember that one of the things they were teaching us is, a woman came in and really kind of had a empty nest issue going on, and she was complaining of physical complaints. I don't remember what they were, but the solution was to, again, find out what are you going to do now with the next chapter of your life, and get creatively absorbed in it and find out something that she really wanted to do. And when she did that, her physical symptoms disappeared, which we often saw in that clinic.
Right.
And it might not be too different from what a man would have the same issues of I'm getting older, and what have I done with my life, and I didn't amount to much, and
absolutely
find something to beat up on ourselves about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, so I imagine this is a topic a lot of people can relate to, and even people at different phases, of course, in their life have those kinds of social comparison thoughts, right? I don't amount to enough, or others around me are more successful than I am, or I don't spend enough time doing A or B or C. And I guess what I shared with you guys is, David, one of the things that I think is such a powerful method that I learned from you, and that I'm sure your listeners hear you talk about a lot, is positive reframing. And right, that's the idea of helping our patients to really see what's good about their symptoms, what's kind of beautiful, what do their symptoms show about them, and what they value. And I did think that was really powerful in both cases, because when you're telling yourself I'm not good enough, of course, you're feeling a lot of shame. And, in both cases, and we can talk more about it, but in both cases, they were able to see what their suffering showed about them that was really beautiful and awesome, and what they really valued, which was very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can look at that in a minute, but let me ask you a question. Because we talk a lot about resistance and positive reframing. And what resistance is that there's this strange phenomenon, first, that as human beings, wouldn't say all, we know for sure that some human beings don't beat up on themselves, they beat up on others. But this tendency among half of human beings, or probably more than half, to beat up on ourselves. And then when therapists or family members swoop in, they try to cheer them up and help and encourage them. Oh, you're a good person, and blah, blah, blah. And that fails nearly 100% of the time because of this thing called resistance, that people seem to resist letting go of this incredible self-abuse. We even had a hiker on the Sunday hike who had run into he's wanting to get seriously into dating and raise a family, but has run into a couple of rejections there in the dating apps, and finds it kind of slow going. But he was just, I must be unlovable, and just filled with self-blame, which that was the surprise number one. And surprise number two, he seemed to be defending his negative, self-critical, hostile thoughts as opposed to, challenging them and being loving toward himself. And the last thing I want to say, and then I'll try hard to shut up, probably won't succeed, but that I'm not good enough and all the people around me have done so much more. I mean, that isn't necessarily for people, empty nesters or
Right.
older people, but like there could be a fifth grader listening to our show who is feeling exactly the same way. And, I'm not smart enough or pretty enough or popular enough. And I bet most of our listeners right now went through that at some time in your life, if not right now, just looking at yourself and saying, I'm just not good enough. What's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm. Or else they go through it periodically, like overcome that thought or challenge that thought and feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And then later on, there's a relapse. It's an easy thought to relapse to.
Yeah. And then how does positive reframing work, or should we do it? But then let's also say, why might this help be an antidote to this resistance?
Yeah.
Why might it help? Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but I mean, it would help if I'm feeling that I'm not good enough and I'm feeling ashamed and I'm feeling essentially bad about myself. If I can recognize that what that shows about me is how much I value, for example, success or intellectual achievement, or how important other people are to me, or whatever it is, it shows that I value, then I ultimately end up feeling kind of proud of my suffering, right?
Yeah.
Kind of proud of my distress, which is, it's hard to feel ashamed and proud at the same time, right?
Yeah. And so once you feel proud of your symptoms, like, say, the woman that you described, who said, I haven't done enough with my career. These other women have done so much more. And then she begins to see what a really loving mother that she's been, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Then how does that relieve her shame? How does that make her feel better? How does that loosen her up to... well, I guess it just shows her the things about herself to love, right?
Right.
The things that we think are symptoms of what's wrong with you are actually expressions of what's right with you.
Yeah. And oh, go ahead, Rhonda. What you
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I guess if someone is saying, gosh, I beating myself up because I should have had a career and I haven't done anything with my life, and we say, well, wow, that shows how important it is to you to be successful, and how much you really admire people who have done tremendous things with their lives. In my opinion, David, not only does it kind of show what they value and what's important to them, but then to me, it's always the pivot question. To me, it's always the most pivotal, so to speak, which is that we say, get kind of given all these benefits and all the things that your negative thoughts and feelings show about you that's so beautiful, why would you want to give it up? And then usually you have people saying, well, because it's just not true, right? Because I have done some great things, or because I want to give myself credit for the things I've done well, or because it's not healthy to compare yourself. Like, so to me, it's both helping them to feel proud of their symptoms, but then also putting them in the driver's seat to sort of argue for change, which I just think is way, way more powerful than trying to reassure someone that they really have done, some good things in their life.
Yeah.
Or rather than the therapist saying, well, look, these are things you could be proud of.
Right.
Let's just see how you could be proud of them. So you, like you said, putting her in the driver's seat of now she's arguing that these are really things that she's ready to get rid of because they're causing her too much pain.
Absolutely.
But then we don't really want her to get rid of all of them because they are really awesome. So we really just want to tone down the amount of pain that they cause and be able to keep what's wonderful about them.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, even in this case of someone who's saying I'm 60 years old, I should have had a career and I didn't do anything with my life. Well, maybe they do want to hold on to some ambition. Maybe they're saying, it's not too late. And I do actually want to do something meaningful or productive or useful, right? And maybe that motivates me to do something useful. But again, not if I'm feeling totally damaged and defective and horrible about myself, but maybe if I dial it down a bit, right? Which is one of the things we work with people on. I can hang on to a little bit of the guilt or shame or sadness. Maybe it'll motivate me to, come up with some kind of more meaningful things and activities now that I have more time on my hands.
Yeah, or else you could see that her work raising children was very useful. It was very meaningful. It did provide a lot of service to the children and to the world if she raised really great children who are now really productive, awesome adults. But she might just want to switch her focus to, well, what else can I do now? Where else can I put my energy and skills and talents that maybe I didn't realize I had as a stay-at-home mom, and now I can put them into another arena.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it, again, just to speak for listeners, why is it that so many of us human beings, beat up on ourselves so mercilessly for our flaws and shortcomings when we would not, most of us would not talk that way to a dear friend who was just like us? Why do we do that?
Because we have really high standards for ourselves.
Maybe it's motivating ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, in essence, a double standard is also because there's sort of an ego involved because I put myself on a pedestal and think I should be better than other people, right?
Yeah.
I have these extremely high standards for myself that I wouldn't even expect of others, right?
Yeah, so it's a really kind of a way of asserting your superiority at the same time that you're asserting your inferiority.
But couldn't it also be that they experienced some trauma in their lifetime, sometime that facilitated this kind of self-criticism?
It could be.
I mean, it could be a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Speaking for yourself, Rhonda?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of my clients. Okay.
Well,
so,
my question is kind of a flat pancake there. But yeah, there could be trauma. At the same time, I'm always skeptical about theories because I was testing statistical models on hypotheses just before we started. And I find that when I have data to test my theories, they're wrong about 90% of the time. But there are certain ideas that are so popular that they're hard to challenge.
I talked about it at a previous podcast. I grew up with the father who kept saying, you don't matter, you can't do anything. And so that, over and over again, that kind of seeped in.
Kind of like hypnosis.
Yeah. And it's hard to fight back from that when you're a kid.
Yeah,
I do hear that a lot, actually, for sure. That when, if you sometimes just say, well, I'm just curious, like, where did that voice come from? A lot of times people will say I had, tiger parents or overbearing parents or parents who I only amounted to my achievements or, who told me that I wasn't good enough or things like that. And there are plenty of people who develop the voice themselves, who just have high standards or overachievers, perfectionistic, et cetera. But yeah, I've heard lots of people say similar things to you, Rhonda, about, I had a parent who said those things to me. For sure. I was just going to say, I think the other patient actually, which people may think is less common, I thought was also very, very interesting because if you think about it, while positive reframing for the stay-at-home mom is that it just shows what high standards she has and that she would, values achievement and looks positively on people in her life who've been really successful. The really interesting thing to me was the woman who had been so successful, right? So successful in her career by anyone's standards that you would think everyone would be envying, right? And maybe every woman would be like, wow, she has these great kids and she had this incredible career. that she's beating herself up and second guessing herself that she should have spent more time, with her children. And ultimately what that shows about her that's so beautiful and awesome is just how much she loves her kids, right? And how much she does actually value family. And it was just ironic and very sweet to see her feeling proud of that part of her, which I don't think she realized was there because she had been so career oriented,
Yeah.
And I think it just also shows people that you always think that the grass is always greener, right? And you look at someone who has a tremendous career and think, oh, wow, she balanced it all and she did everything. And here she is not feeling good enough, right? Because of the choices that she made.
What a rough, existence in that moment.
Yeah, right.
Were these two women fairly depressed when they first came? Were they looking for a tune-up, or were they really feeling down?
They were more looking for a tune-up. They were actually, interestingly, both different for different reasons, but both more originally came to work on anxiety. And then it was sort of like a second goal. Like they were working on anxiety. They each had anxiety in different ways. The highly accomplished person was actually fairly perfectionistic and had some OCD things that we were working on. And then kind of said, I've been feeling some sadness and some shame about where I am in my life and the way that I've spent my time. And it kind of came up because she did some homework and this came up on a daily mood log that she had been feeling down that week about it. And it was just something that I felt like from using positive reframing and then the double standard and externalization of voices, it was like gone, it like no longer seemed at all like something to be concerned about.
And how many sessions were involved in the cure, so to speak, whatever you want to call it?
In the empty nest cure, like this particular cure, I think was probably 3 sessions, because I think she came in with a daily mood log, which is what made me realize that she had these negative thoughts and shame. And we did positive reframing that week. And she continued it for homework. We did a little bit. It was either 2 or 3 sessions. And really methods wise, it was positive reframing, the double standard, and then kind of sealing the deal, as we often do with externalization of voices, with pretty much with acceptance, right? Yeah. The acceptance paradox.
Did this come out, Jill, in the hidden emotion when you were working with her?
I was wondering that too.
No, it didn't, but maybe we should talk about that. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, you were talking about anxiety, and often when someone feels anxiety, David said, if they're especially nice people, they have a hidden emotion or that's not being expressed and it's coming out in different ways. That's affecting their anxiety. And I was just wondering if the hidden emotion for her was the criticism of her parenting.
Or was the sadness, the unrecognized at first sadness about, that I couldn't do everything, and the one without the career, suddenly sad about that. And then the one, I'm a terrible mother, sad about seeing that how much she loved her boys and kind of missed the time she could have spent with them, more time with them or something. We're just babbling here, but
no, I appreciate thinking about other methods that would have been useful, or just conceptualizing it. Yeah,
I had an empty nester in my psychiatric practice that was a little different, and I think part of your point, Jill, is that each person is individual. We don't have formulas for problems, and you have to see what a person's negative thoughts are, and then do positive reframing, go through the steps. But it kind of on a hidden emotion model that you were talking about, Rhonda. And I don't know, you may be familiar with this story, as David, as he eases into dementia, repeats his stories all the time. But it was a woman who came and she said as soon as her daughters had gone off to college, I think they were very close ages, so that she started to have a lot of depression, and she couldn't quite understand why, because she said she had a wonderful relationship with her daughters, and they were doing fine, so there was really nothing wrong in her life, and yet she was just struggling with a lot of grief and sadness. And she said, I had a wonderful relationships with both of my daughters, just like I had with my mother. And I said, well, tell me about that. And she said, well, I just had the most wonderful mother, and she was the coach of our swimming team, and we were having a competition, some kind of swimming meet or something, and so she was competing in one of the swimming competitions, and her mother was, was the coach of the team, and she heard the gun go off, and so they dove in, and she was swimming as fast as she could because she wanted to win and make her mother proud. And then they said, girls, you have to get out of the pool. Stop what you're doing, get out of the pool. And then she looked, and there was a crowd standing around where her mother had been standing, had been, and her mother was lying down.
Mm.
And she tried to get up close to find out what was going on, and somebody, her father, I guess, pulled her away. And what had happened is that her mother had an aortic aneurysm that ruptured.
Oh my God.
And she bled to death there on the edge of the pool.
Oh my God.
And then I said, wow, that must have been such a horrible loss for you. Your grief must have been just so intense. And can you tell me about that? And she said, well, I never cried about my mother's death. And I said, well, why was that? And she said, well, my dad said mother wants you to be strong, and you shouldn't cry. And so she said, I never cried about my mother's death.
Mm.
And she was getting all choked up. And I said, I you need to cry. And maybe that's something you want to do right now. And then she just started sobbing, and then so that was kind of a hidden emotion thing that came out. And then for homework, I just told her to go to her mother's grave, which was not too far from where she lived, every day, as often as she wanted, and talk to her mother and cry and tell her mother how much she loved her. And then to, come back the next week. And then when she came back the next week, she had gone many days and talked to her mother and cried, allowed herself to cry. And then she said that her depression had disappeared. And so she was able to terminate the treatment, after 2 sessions at the end of her second session. But every person has their own pathway through life, and we all have our own vulnerabilities, which are unique and different. And that's why I love the team and doing what we're doing, because it gives us a way to respond to each patient individually and treat their thoughts, their issues, their unique feelings. And everyone will be different, even when confronted with the same type of problem. And that might seem trivial to people, but to me, it's not trivial, because people are always looking for formulas. What's the formula for the empty nest syndrome? And it just pisses me off. Excuse the language, because looking for formulas and solutions to problems. So that's not the way I'm familiar with, or you, Rhonda, and Jill are familiar with, in terms of bringing someone from despair and depression to joy, but more following an individual path. And we're trying to drum up some interviews now for my app, or our app that's coming out soon, to try to stir up some media interviews. And one of the PR firms don't seem very skillful these days. But one of them was stirring up some questions from some media sources. So we'll ask Dr. Burns, what are some 5 things he does to preserve his mental health, to help his mental health? Like, what are 5 tips for our user? And I feel like, say, my first tip would be to kind of smash you in the nose with my fist, because it's such a stupid question, and that would make me feel happy.
That was very endearing.
Yeah.
Very cathartic.
Yeah.
Tell me more, Dr. Burns.
Right. But it's what we're saying isn't terribly simple, but it's not terribly complicated either. But life is not a series of tricks or things it's like seeing what you're telling yourself and tuning into how hard we can be on ourselves, at least when we're depressed and anxious. And then, of course, when you have a relationship problem, you're hard on the other person. But the techniques to change those things, they can be changed really quickly and profoundly in a mind-blowing way. But it's not by learning some little trick you're supposed to do.
I just have to tell you something that's so fascinating to me, David and Rhonda. So, you guys asked about the hidden emotion, and I said, well, no. In other words, I didn't explore that with the patient, and you kind of had some hypotheses. And then, David, you just told your story, and then it just hit me, something that's totally fascinating about this patient. That, and again, I'm definitely disguising, important details here, but. So after I did this work with a woman who was,
is this the one that was married to Trump for so long?
Exactly. I won't tell you anything except her name and her address and her social security number. So the patient that I was seeing that was very successful in her career and feeling guilty about the boys. You're going to be like, of course, Jill, how could you have not seen this? Because I'm suddenly seeing this. So this is what happened. I worked with her on, I had worked with her on some OCD stuff, and then I worked with her on this kind of shame and self-criticism, kind of in this more straightforward way, using the positive reframing and the double standard externalization of voices. And I did not put this together with what we ended up what I ended up helping her with right after that, which was she then shared with me that actually one of her sons, she was talking about her guilt because they don't have a very good relationship, or they didn't have a very good relationship. And in sharing more about it with me, it was kind of clear that he was being a jerk and kind of using her, right? She's a very, very successful person who has a lot of funds and ways of making his life excellent. And she said that she was actually feeling used by him. And also feeling angry, because it took her a long time to get to anger, but I got there with her, but also feeling angry because he was simultaneously asking for things and then not being kind of a caring and attentive son. So she felt like I give, and he takes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And she became aware of her anger. And I will say, because she was a patient who anything we worked on, she just took it and used it to the nth degree, right? So she would get through things very quickly and recover. So I basically said, I can, teach you the 5 secrets, after doing a lot of empathy and really understanding her anger and her frustration. And then I told her about your book, Feeling Good Together. And we talked about the 5 secrets, and I taught her basically the 5 secrets, and also really needing to share her feelings with her son. At the same time, trying to understand what it is he's looking for in their relationship, and how she maybe has been letting him down and not there for him in ways that he would want her to be there for him. But really sharing her frustration and her anger, and that she was feeling a little bit used, et cetera. And he actually opened up to her in a way that he never had before, about kind of some anger he had toward her from the past. And I won't go into those details because they're pretty specific and personal, but that he was harboring some anger and resentment from her and was kind of using her and keeping her at a distance. And when she brought this up to him, he actually really opened up to her. And this is like a young adult man that, many people would have just written off. Oh, he's just not interested in having a relationship with his mother. And literally, since I sound like you, David, but like overnight, their relationship literally transformed. And she came back and said to me that she's like, I have a relationship with my son that I never thought was possible.
Oh, that is such a joy-producing thing. Is this the one that came in with a lot of anxiety initially?
Yeah, OCD stuff. Yeah.
So there was a hidden emotion hiding underneath. Hiding underneath. Yeah.
And I didn't see, like, we worked on these things separately, kind of in sequence, and I didn't see the thread that connected them until you told your story, and so that's seeing the connection.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
That is neat. Yeah, you had that intuition, Rhonda.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Oh, thanks. You taught it to me. Yeah. All thanks go back to you, David.
Yeah. But what I find is helpful for me. Maybe I can use this for that interview question. From some media source or something. I'm supposed to. But what I find is helpful for me is just, and it's come a lot easier as I've been older, is just the idea of being kind to myself. And I'm just so filled with flaws, but as the Buddha said, what the F? Who cares? Type of thing. It's just such a simple thing to be kind of try to be kindly to yourself.
Right. Well, I think of it, David, actually, in the trying to be kind to myself and being kind to my partner, because I know.
Oh, yeah.
I think these are two things. Like, if I think about who are the most precious people, who are the most precious people in my life, like, it has to be me, right? I have to be one of those people. And then, the person that I've chosen to live my life with and raise my children with and spend day in and day out with. And aren't those the people that deserve truly like the most love and the most compassion, the most forgiveness, the most kindness, right?
Right.
I mean, we're going to channel it somewhere. Like, shouldn't it be there?
Yeah, right.
Gosh, I've never heard anyone say it that way, Jill, that a person who is precious to me is me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I thought you were going to say me.
And you.
And you too. And Jill.
You definitely make my top 5, David, for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Only 5? Okay. Any other loose ends here, Jill, that you'd like to emphasize?
I don't think so, but this was, it was really fun to talk about the case, and also just really eye-opening for me too when Rhonda made the suggestion about the hidden emotion and you shared your story, and I realized, wow, there really was kind of another thread operating that we ended up getting to, but that I didn't see the connection. That was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And how do you think, maybe you said it already, but how did you get there? How did she open up about that?
Never you mind. You have to come to next week's podcast to find out that. Yeah.
No, what I can say is what was very interesting to me. So this is a patient I was seeing that was really very self-aware. And once I introduced the daily mood log to her, and she had kind of repressed or, suppressed feelings her whole life, and then came to therapy and was like, I am going to tell you everything that comes up for me, and I'm going to be really thoughtful and honest about my feelings. So essentially on her daily mood log, the following, after we had worked on her guilt and shame about being a bad mother, the following week on her daily mood log, one of her daily mood logs, she indicated that she was feeling angry with her son and that she was having thoughts like that he's using me. And also, it came out of the, I'm a terrible mother. Why do you think you're a terrible mother? Because I have a poor relationship with my son. Tell me more about your relationship with my son.
Yeah, cool.
And then she didn't start with I'm angry with him, but it got to me saying things which I learned from David, like, well, how does it feel to you when he only calls you because he needs something and doesn't ask how you're doing? How does it feel to you to be giving and not receiving? And that we got to anger and frustration and disappointment. Yeah. And then we talked about using the 5 secrets as we realized this was an interpersonal problem, not just an individual mood problem. And I have tools not just to help you work on yourself, but to actually work on your relationship with your son. And would you want to learn those tools? And here's what it would look like. And then she had zero resistance to learning the 5 secrets. And so then she took that and had this really warm and caring, but super honest, also a lot of I feels. And that's what turned things around.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
And may I add that the wisdom that Jill is sharing with us today can be learned at the intensive that you guys are going to be doing in August.
Yes. Good point.
We haven't really talked about that much, but just as a person sitting here listening to you, Jill, I'm getting tears in my eyes when you talked about considering yourself precious and what you've learned from David. I've been doing team therapy 10 years, which is not as long as you guys, but I'm learning every minute by just sitting here, and other therapists who are interested in learning about team therapy can learn from you for the first time since 2019 at your intensive. Just can you take a moment to tell us about it?
Thank you, Rhonda. It's exciting news that I haven't offered my summer intensive since before the pandemic. And I've really missed it, and other people have really missed it. And if you're a shrink of any persuasion, a medical doctor or psychiatrist, psychologist, clinical social worker, pastoral counselor, coach, anything like that. The intensive at the South San Francisco Conference Center used to be the highlight of the year because I used to give at least 20 to 22 two-day conferences every year, plus a 4-day intensive. And the 4-day intensive at the South San Francisco Conference Center was always the highlight of the year. Magic happens at the intensives on many different levels. But you work your ass off, you're exhausted at the end, but your mind is blown in a really good way. And we're bringing it back. And this time, Jill and I are going to be teaching together rather than David doing it alone. Jill, you and I always have done live demo there with someone, a volunteer, which we'll, of course, do this year. But we'll have the two of us teaching like we do in the Tuesday group. And I'm excited about that. We're going to have Rhonda there here hosting and being a part of this event as well. But tell us your take on it, Jill.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super, super excited too. This is something that, local therapists would go to even year after year to learn kind of again and again, because what Rhonda said is so true. We are all continuously learning and being able to, it's going to be 3.5 days. It's August 8th through.
Is it starting on Thursday or Wednesday?
Thursday. Oh. Thursday, August 8th, right? 8, 9, 10, and 11. So Thursday, August 8th through Sunday, August 11th. And it's 3.5 days, and it's in person in South San Francisco. It's 30 CEs for therapists wanting their CE credit. And we're also going to be live streaming it online, which is totally new and different. So you can attend in person, come to South San Francisco, be there, experience the awesome community kind of surrounded by like-minded therapists. And you can also join for half the price live online. And we'll also have people live online to help with facilitating questions and answers and breakout group practice and experiential learning. All the great stuff we'll be doing in person, we'll be bringing it to life online too. And yes, Rhonda is going to be one of the, awesome hosts and collaborators and, helping us to make it a great success. So I'm super excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say if there's one event that you're going to attend this year, it should be the intensive, because you'll certainly see the best that I've got and the best that Rhonda has and the best that Jill has. And then they tell us about what's going to happen on Saturday night, Rhonda.
Well, on the very first night, on Thursday, you and Jill are going to be doing personal work with somebody from the audience, someone who has experienced anxiety or depression. And so people who are there can see firsthand the two geniuses of team therapy providing personal work, so you can get a taste of it. And then throughout the rest of
those have been dramatic in the past, I might say, from different forms of drama, but they're always dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely, because people's lives are dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not theater. It's not like you're planting somebody to be dramatic. You're picking somebody from the audience who's experiencing some type of depression, anxiety, a real human being. And then enlightenment is dramatic.
Yeah.
And exciting to see. And so then throughout the process, throughout the intensive, you and Jill are going to be teaching how participants can bring their clients to the same type of enlightenment. So on Saturday, people are going to be broken up into groups, I believe, of 5 each. And a very experienced team therapist, a level 4 or 5 therapist, will be attached to each group so that they can support the participants as needed. One of the group of 5 will be the patient dealing with a real life issue that they are coping with. And the other 4 people in the group will be going through the entire team model and providing team therapy to the participant who volunteered to be the patient. So it'll be an exciting opportunity to use the team structure and methods that you guys are going to be teaching with the support of a experienced helper.
Yeah. And in some workshops, and I know this because I used to go to workshops, and I have people who were emailing me that they've been to workshops. You go and you listen and you pretend that you learned something, but you didn't, because it's like trying to learn riding a bicycle by going to a talk about bicyclists, and it doesn't show you anything about how to ride a bicycle. And so after we teach a technique, we'll break you into sometimes just dyads, you and one other person, sometimes small groups, to actually practice using deliberate practice and getting immediate feedback to try the thing. So it's a very different kind of experience. And then the Saturday night, you're on the spot because you have to put the whole workshop together and try to bring somebody from a state of struggle and despair to a state of joy and euphoria and enlightenment. And then Sunday morning, we'll have a half a day and do our little give out the certificates and have everyone come up and take their bows and just have a celebratory goodbye at noon. And then you'll have Sunday off to merge back into your normal life. But we hope you can join us, and because it never ceases to please, that intensive.
I think that's a really good point. How many times have we sat in a workshop and sat for 8 hours and listened and nodded our heads and take notes, but when we leave the workshop, we don't know if we're actually going to be able to apply what we just learned. But in this intensive, throughout the process, people are going to be able to apply what it is that they're learning.
I used to take compulsive notes in workshops, and then I think I was going to read them, and then I'd filed them. Right. And eventually I got like about a 4 or 5 inch file with notes in it and just threw them all away. Right. It was such a relief. So you won't even have to take notes.
Yeah, we know that behavior doesn't change from an observation, right? We need to observe and we need to learn and understand it cognitively, but then we need to actually put it into practice in order to change our behavior. And the other thing that's really cool is the likelihood, if you attend in person or even if you attend online, maybe you'll meet other like-minded therapists that you can then continue to practice with. We have a whole kind of team certified community that if you're not a part of, you'll automatically, actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have this on the website as well, but you'll get level 2 certified as well. If you're not certified at all, you'll have enough hours to become level 2 certified, and then we'll include that so you can become part of the Team CBT certified community, which means that you can continue to find people to practice with and learn from and sort of start to really transform your practice.
Yeah. And then the best thing of all is if you come in person, that's why the in-person costs so much more than the online, is you get, we reveal to you and you can practice the secret handshake of team therapists.
Shh, that's a secret.
I thought David was going to say you get to have lunch. That's what I thought David was going to say.
Oh, yeah, we'll have at least one great lunch and maybe two great lunches with special attractions while you're eating.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jill, so much. And thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill, for bringing this really interesting topic to us. I do have to say one more thing is that people in the United States and Canada and Mexico can come to this, but maybe people in Europe won't be able to come to this. And there is going to be a 2-day workshop, a masterclass on anxiety being taught in May in Ireland. And if you want to listen to that at the end of this podcast, there's going to be someone talking about how you can find out more about that 2-day workshop in Ireland.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Love you all. Have a nice day or evening or whatever time of day it is there. And we'll see you again next week.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll be on video soon.
That was a really great podcast, David. And now I want to introduce our guest because we have a special announcement about a really exciting learning opportunity that's taking place in Dublin, in Ireland in May. And so I'm going to introduce Jerry Butcher, who's a part of the training in the Dublin masterclass on anxiety. Jerry is an assistant professor and a supervisor on the foundation, higher diploma, and master's level training courses in cognitive behavioral psychotherapy at the Department of Psychiatry in Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. He also works in a private practice as a cognitive behavioral psychotherapist in the Dublin area. And he has an incredible list of qualifications and achievements. And Jerry, I understand you're helping to organize Team CBT masterclass on anxiety. Why don't you tell us about it and let us know too how people can find out more?
Yeah, we're really excited about this because I went to the Team CBT UK meeting in Bristol last year, and we had a wonderful 4 days. David taught on that on a couple of days as well, and I was really blown away by not just the approach, but also the humility of the presenters. And, they were just such fantastic guys, but they weren't there just to blow their own trumpet. They were there to really just reach out, not afraid to say if they got it wrong or it didn't work out. And I think there was just something extra special about it that really appealed to me. So I spoke with the guys there in the UK team and suggested that I'd love to take it to Ireland if we could do that. So over the last few months, we've been working at preparing that, and we agreed in the end on a 2-day masterclass on Team CBT, and we've got a mix of people coming over. I know Lee is coming and Elizabeth Dandanel, and it'd be great to have them along with a team from the UK. So I'm just very excited to organise it and be a part of it. It's taking place May 17 and 18 in a hotel in Dublin city centre, and it'll be on for the 2 full days. People can find out about it at a website, conferencenetworking.ie, and I can send you on the details or make sure you have it for your podcast. But it's all on that website.
So it's conference networking?
Networking.ie.
I as in igloo, E as in egg?
That's correct, yeah.
And is conference networking one word?
Yes, all one word, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
let me just double check that I've got it right, because I just reference the site so often, so I'll just double check that.
And when you say Lee, you're referring to Lee Harrington, who's just a wonderful trainer and a marvelous human being.
Yes, and she was great, yeah.
And also
some great stuff.
Yeah, and you referenced Elizabeth Dandanel, who has a long-term clinic on using Team CBT to address anxiety disorders.
Now, I have a question about your wonderful conference. Is this only open to shrinks, or if I'm a general citizen struggling with anxiety, would it be something there for me as well?
We've been aiming more at the at therapists who may have an interest in the whole Team CBT concept. We're not closed off to the idea of having others. I think by and large, if someone has maybe read your book, David, or has an interest in it from that perspective, we quite likely would be open to that. But I suppose we're limiting the numbers to around 55, 60 people, because we feel for the nature of the masterclass, we'd better to keep it relatively small. So, we're open to that, but we'll see what comes in terms of
maybe
people attending.
First priority to shrinks, and just focus on training. That sounds terrific, and thank you so much for announcing that. Any other cool things we need to know about the conference?
Well, the venue is just right beside the largest public park in Europe, the Phoenix Park, for anyone who's been to Dublin. And I'm going to organise hopefully a tour of the Guinness factory as well. It's the #1 tourist attraction in Ireland. So if people want to come along, we can organise that too. So
do they give free tastings? Free tastings?
You get a free pint of Guinness at the end of the tour. Yes, at the top.
Right. It sounds like a fantastic conference.
Let's mention the UK teachers. The Andy Person is going to be teaching.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Sean Connolly,
who's from Northern Ireland. Yeah.
And Tanya Ahern, who's also from
that's right.
UK.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that Andy, Sean, and Tanya have been long-term members of the Wednesday team training group. So they're all absolutely fantastic. And it sounds like, Jerry, people are going to be getting the equivalent of continuing education points if you're a European. Is that for if you're a UK therapist?
Yeah, anyone from the UK or from the Republic, from Ireland itself, we're giving up to 14 credits and hoping to get that all. That's in process at the moment to get that approved locally as well. Yeah,
and it will attending this conference will automatically qualify you for level 1 in the Team CBT certification process.
Yeah, that's the other big plus. Yes. Yeah, really excited about that.
So if you head for Ireland, for Dublin, which has always been romantic, and didn't we just have St. Patrick's Day here a couple of days ago?
We did indeed.
Yeah, of course, this is recorded well ahead of, this will be just 4 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But Ireland is a beautiful and spiritual place. My wife and I had the joy of spending a week or so there years ago, and it was really terrific. And I remember burning the peat in the fireplace in the morning, and I'll never forget that smell. I actually took a log back on the airplane or shipped it or something like that. And
fun!
It was very, very special. So if you head to Dublin, you'll learn, as the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, you'll learn a lot of good shit, but you'll also have a hell of a good time.
we do our best. Yeah.
Jerry, thank you for organizing that. It's really exciting.
Man. Yeah, we're very excited here, and I know there's several psychiatrists who are interested in the whole approach as well, have already signed up and are booked in. So and they're spreading the word among their colleagues too.
Cool. Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you're ever out in California, please join my Monday training group.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Jerry, thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhonda. Lovely to meet you guys. Okay.
Yeah,
bye.
Lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.